Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome to Reflections. I'm Sarah Trino. I'm so glad that you are here and so delighted to share my friend Wayne Glass with you. Wayne, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be doing this with you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, from my perspective, I'm just going to say that Wayne and I met at the gym. I feel like all the people that I have on Reflections, I've met at the gym. Wayne and I met at the gym, and I don't know, I felt kind of like just an instant meeting of the minds. I think one of our very first conversations, we talked about accessibility in the fitness world. And so we just kind of immediately, just two people of privilege and different intersections of it coming together and just seeing each other. That's kind of how I think of you.
Yeah, yep. I think it was like 2015. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you introduce yourself? How would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Wayne Glass, he, him, his pronouns. And I currently reside in New York City. So I recently moved on July 2nd, 2020. Of course, you and I were in Minnesota together for several years. I lived in Minnesota for 5 years. And I have a background in higher education and student affairs. That's where I lived legitimately for 7 years of my life. And in addition, as you mentioned, fitness and wellness is something that's been integral to who I am and how I am and how I show up in spaces. And that's been a large part of my journey for, I would say, 16 years.
When we talk about Wayne Glass Fitness, tell me what separates you from every other fitness instructor out there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm the type of person, I truly believe I can work with anyone. And what I say by that is whether you've never worked out a day in your life or you're, a higher level person that wants like one-to-one accountability. If you're anything like me, you need accountability. Even though I know what to do and I've done lots of different things over the years, whether it's no equipment or an infinite amount of equipment. Also, just as a brief snapshot, and I can talk more about this, I, as a person, for 10 years really struggled with an eating disorder, right? Having these preconceived notions of like what it means to be aesthetically appealing versus not aesthetically appealing. And it wasn't until a lot of self-work and exposure to body types that are doing things for themselves that make them feel good that really allowed me to see myself in a way. I'm like, oh, like the gym doesn't have to be torture. Working out doesn't have to be torture. It can be fun. And as long as you're moving your body in ways that are meaningful and speak to you, then who cares? Like, who cares what you do? Dance, whatever, lift weights, run, yoga, whatever that means. So that being said, I am happy to work on whatever folks want to work on. At the end of the day, like, it's not about me. It's about the other person, right? I'm here as a gateway, as a facilitator, as a motivator, whatever that means for you. But what you want to do and how you want to do it that's up to you, right? And I want to be able to support and enable that. And
You touched on it at the beginning, but what makes you is your story. And by the time that you and I met, you had kind of come through the other side of your story in many ways. But can you tell me about it?
So thinking about like 8-year-old Wayne, I, started to gain weight and I was bullied and I was perceived to be gay and I was effeminate presenting and how I talked. And I didn't really know any of the language or terminology or anything along those lines. That was not something that I had purview access to. These are not conversations I had with my family or what have you. When I first heard the term gay, it was in a negative connotation, and I was very resistant to that. So I think that when you add on the layer of being like bullied for being like overweight and then also being perceived to be gay, again, because I didn't know at the time how I identified, that I had a lot of self-loathing. So it wasn't until many years later when I was in middle school, so I was not 18, I was 14 in 8th grade, that I started to do what I thought was going to be right for my body, like exercising and eating a certain way because, again, quote unquote, thought was going to be okay. And then I started losing some weight, but it really wasn't until after I finished middle school and I was getting ready to start high school that all like my disordered eating came to fruition. So my father lives in Alabama, and my mother and myself lived in Florida. I went to stay with my dad for a summer in Alabama, and I was there for 3 months, and the duration of like summer between, 8th grade and 9th grade. And I started to like exercise and like eat in a different way. I don't want to say healthy because that's a stretch, but like eating and exercising. And I didn't know it at the time, but I ended up developing exercise bulimia. And how I define that for myself is that like every time I would eat something, I would feel a compulsive need to exercise, right? Whether it's walking or running or whatever, any type of cardio. That's what I felt I needed to do. So I lost, like I weighed 150 something ish before I left. And then I like came back to Alabama weighing like 118, 120. So like
Your mom must have had a heart attack.
Yeah, she did. She's like, holy guacamole. Cause like I hadn't taken pictures. This is like pre smartphones. Like I didn't have a cell phone. Like no one knew what I looked like. We didn't take pictures or send emails because again, like it wasn't a thing at that time. So I came back because I think I didn't fly. There's no way. There was some driving. I think my dad dropped me off or someone picked me up. I don't know, whatever it was. And yeah, I was not a very happy person. Like as I'm transitioning back from my previous life to now, like getting ready for school to start going into 9th grade, I was very thin, and I was receiving lots of words of affirmation from my friends who I went to middle school with, who now went on to high school with. They're different schools, but it was a smaller town, right? So everyone kind of knew everyone. And I was like, yeah, I look great, da, da, da. I didn't feel good because I felt guilty every time I ate something, but I looked good according to other people. And I really internalized that. And I held on to that for years, like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, graduated from high school, moved on to college, still feeling that way. My shame and blame kind of dissolved a little bit over time. And I started going into therapy when I was in college for lots of different things, one of them being disordered eating. But it wasn't until I was 21 years old that I took a psychology class. We were studying, it was called abnormal psychology. I don't know if they would call it that to this day, but that's what it was called. And we were studying eating disorders or disordered eating. And I'm like, oh my God, this is me. Like, this is literally my life. In the textbook, I'm reading about myself. Again, did not have the language, no exposure, none of that. That really served as a catalyst for me, like trying to get help for myself. I vividly remember one day where I was walking to the gym from my residence hall because I lived on campus, and it was closed because of a holiday or whatever it was. And I called my friend Kate and like was emotional breakdown, like lost it. And then that was another breaking point to where I really needed to start talking to someone about what was going on. So I did. I went to therapy, and it was helpful. And largely my ED voice, as I like to call it, or my eating disorder voice, became more and more silent, right? So navigated that, went on, graduated from undergrad, really wanted to go to grad school, went to grad school at Iowa State in Iowa. And it was until I was 24 that it resurfaced again. And suicidal ideation became a factor. I was really depressed. I really couldn't pinpoint like what were the triggers or anything along those lines. But, and then again, I went back to therapy, whilst I was in grad school. I also started talking with a dietitian, and all of these factors are really helpful. And then it was at that time when I was 24 that I was exposed to a gym community where it was all types of bodies in the gym, like folks that you would see on, like stereotypical, like fitness magazines, to folks that like you just see like walking on the street, and everywhere in between. Right. And I had never been exposed to that ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like there's people doing these awesome things that they don't all look the same. And it was really then that just like fundamentally changed my life. Now don't get me wrong. I still do struggle sometimes with that voice and those feelings, but it is like way suppressed. Like I have worked through it. I have the resources, I have the skills to pay the bills, the tools, all of those things that have really helped me be who I am today. And yeah, I'm almost 30. I'll be 30 in September. So I'm thriving in that way. And I've been able to not use fitness as like punishment, but like fitness is fun. Like I enjoy it. And it's fun to work out by yourself. I mean, like I would rather work out with people, but because that's like who I am. But it really was other people that helped kind of change my frame of thinking and way of approaching fitness.
So
Yeah.
can I add, I want to circle back three things that came up that I was thinking. The first time I want to reflect back to you, because that's a potent thing when you think that fitness looks a certain way, and when you see that it doesn't. I was watching a marathon, and where my house was, it was around mile 25, so the last stretch of the Twin Cities Marathon, and the bodies that would come past me were all different shapes and sizes. And that was my moment when I was like, oh my God, these people are running 26.2 miles and they're all different body types. And that to me was huge.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
So one of the things that you said was you're at the gym, you see all these different body types and you see them kicking your butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Like I'm like, there's no way in hell that I could ever pick up that weight or do this or do that. And literally, like, I'm competitive, but like in a fun way, but destroying the workouts.
For sure. And that's when, there's an internal kind of shifting, I think, that takes place when you actually see that not only is there actually no definition of what a fit body looks like.
Right.
I saw a woman compete in a powerlifting competition, and on the street, like you say, on the street, you wouldn't look at this person and be like, oh, for sure, she's a power lifter, right?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding, Wayne. She deadlifted, I think, 440. I saw her 440, 460, something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that the message is that I just want to reflect that back to you. I understand that on a soul level. And I think it's our responsibility as people in the fitness and the wellness industry to continually bust down those stereotypes.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. And even thinking about, like, as we were talking about when we first started chatting, like what it means that like able-bodied, like the physical aspect, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of those things, right? Like just to give folks like a heads up, working out is expensive, especially if you want access to blank amenities, right? Coaching, equipment, what have you. And that's a whole nother conversation that we definitely can dive into, is like the monetary aspect of it. But then also thinking about accessibility regarding physical access, right? Like able-bodied versus folks with disabilities or different abilities and what have you, right? So I think that what I've also seen and learned is that, and as a person, I fundamentally believe anyone can do anything in some type of way, right? It doesn't have to be exactly as written or exactly as presented or exactly as displayed. It can be done in ways that are allowing for the whatever body type, right? So, and like, it's amazing to see people who have once upon a time in their life, you know, something has happened and they're no longer able to use X part of their body, but they're like, they can do whatever is happening in a way that allows them to move that is very close to or similar to how it might be for a person who is able-bodied, right? So there's always scaling, there's always modifications that allows people to move in ways that, again, like speak to their soul. And I just think that it's amazing. And again, like I continue to like watch on YouTube or in real life, and I'm just inspired by the human body and how people are able to do so many cool things with it.
Yeah, in whatever shape it's in.
100%.
So the next thing I want to reflect back in what you were saying in your story was, I'm trying to imagine navigating the world, trying to figure out my place in the world. And we all have this journey, but I'm talking about yours, trying to navigate your place in the world, trying to unpack how you identify and it's all woven up together with your physical body.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of pull that apart?
So I would say that I'm like happier in my own skin now. It did take me legitimately my entire life to get there. And that's what I would never wish that upon anyone else. Like I would hope that people would be more happy in their skin, like always, but I recognize that's a wish versus like a reality. Being able to kind of, I don't know about separate my queerness from my like physicalness, because they're very integral, especially like being a male, a gay male, and like not needing to, but feeling the need to like feed into like these beautiful Instagram models that are getting paid to look pretty, right? We're inundated with that media all the time. But I really try to check myself and, check my own thoughts and feelings about that.
So that brings me to my third thing to circle back on is, you were talking about when you got back from your summer in Alabama and about how you got lots of positive reinforcement for your weight loss. And
Yeah.
I think that I'm hoping that our society is evolving past that kind of stuff, but I don't think we are really, honestly. I just think that we are, as a society, when we see someone who has either gained or lost weight, we put value on it.
The body positivity movement definitely is alive and well. I would say it is way, way, way better. Not perfect. Perfect is a social construct that's never going to exist, but it is way better than 10 years ago, right?
So, personally speaking, I think I have to be incredibly diligent. I have to really be diligent in loving the shit out of myself.
Yeah, 100%.
In the face of it all, because it's all out there. And I have 2 daughters, right? That helps to keep me very much away from, oh, no. You don't get to put value on my physical body.
To answer your question, I do think that there's more of a movement that's continued to have momentum with like, whether it's thin, whether it's thicker, whether it's muscular, whether it's, toned, and everything in between. And outside of that, I definitely think that it is better than what it once was.
But my last question for you, totally personal, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. You said that you're doing the work. You're doing the work. They're constantly doing the work. When does your ed voice do you notice, is there a pattern of when that voice talks, and what are the tools that you bring to that moment? Given
where I'm at in my life, dessert is kind of like something where I struggle with sometimes. But then I talk to myself, I'm like, no, like, it's not like you deserve this type of food. It's like, no, like if you want it, you're going to eat it. And if you don't want it, then don't eat it, or if you don't have it, then fine. If you want it, then go get it. If you're able to, financially, physically, what have you, go get it. Right. For example, the other day I really wanted ice cream. So my partner and I, we walked to get ice cream because he didn't want it. We waited in line for like 15 minutes because you have to wait outside, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of those things like, do I feel guilty for it? No. And that's the biggest thing. I would never want anyone to feel guilty for eating or not eating something, because guilt, shame, and blame are not going to be problem solvers. It's just going to make us feel worse about our life choices.
Right. They're completely not productive. And also, I would argue, probably 3 of the only learned emotions.
Oh, for sure. Exactly. It's like, right. It's like, dog.
So my last question for you is, I feel, and I'm not sure, but I feel very much like food. Food is like really a complex relationship that and I find it to be tremendously interesting to start to unpack that, because in my world, it's just food, right? It's just food. It's meant to be pleasurable. It's meant to be enjoyed. How do you feel out the other end? How do you feel about food now?
Yeah, no, I love it. I look forward to eating every opportunity I get. I really do. I am a consistent eater. I feel no guilt about eating, which I did before. I do not, even if I don't work out and I haven't worked out for a couple of days, I don't feel shame or blame for not, or for eating. And yeah, it's a part of the day that I really get excited about. I think that my relationship with it now is that I get to, as opposed to I have to. Definitely. Right. I mean, like, the scars are there. I mean, they're invisible and they're figurative, but I continue to talk about these things because it's important for me to not forget them, and to also important for me to remember where I was to where I am to where I'm going.
Absolutely, yes. And I think that's what's going to make Wayne Glass Fitness so special.
Thank you. That
So
really does mean a lot.
I really do. I really think that that's what's going to set you apart, is that story, your story, and how you're going to be able to help so many people with your story.
Thank you so much. That really does mean a lot to me.
Special thanks to Wayne Glass for joining me for this month's reflections. He's such a special and amazing human. Here's his contact information. Thank you for joining us this month. Have a great day.